Voxfarm presents.
We've already talked about Giacomo Puccini and his opera Tosca, so you know that it is set entirely in the historic centre of Rome. Do you want to know more about these splendid places? Let's start with this podcast by Professor Claudio Strinati about the Basilica of Sant'Andrea della Valle.
Welcome to Lirica, the podcast about Italy's cultural heritage. We'll tell you about works of art and artists, musical masterpieces and musicians. We'll visit incredible places and meet characters from every era. They'll tell us about their lives and even a bit about our own. Because culture is simple when it speaks the language of beauty.
Mario Cavaradossi is a fictitious painter, but his character has been created with perfect knowledge and understanding of the events of the era. Victorian Sadu's text, on which Tosca is based, is set at the beginning of the 19th century, at the time of the Battle of Marengo, to be exact. So Cavaradossi is a painter from that era. When we meet Cavaradossi, he is in the church of Sant'Andrea della Valle in Rome, painting a picture of Mary Magdalene that is inspired by the features of Marchioness Attavanti. He sees in her the marvel of pure and honest beauty, and in singing his entrance aria, Recondita Armonia, hidden harmony, he builds a minimal aesthetic theory around the image he's painting. He says that art is even better when it blends contrasting beauties together. These words are taken from Lirica and Giocosa's beautiful libretto. Now, the image that Cavaradossi is painting is based on the long-established philosophy of blended harmony, a principle at the base of all art, including painting. Here, harmony means blending contrasting beauties. To give a practical example, Cavaradossi tells us that his lover, the famous soprano Floria Tosca, is brunette, whilst Marchioness Attavanti, who he is painting, is blonde. Having stated that the mystery of art consists of merging together contrasting beauties, Cavaradossi lets us know that the Mary Magdalene he's painting will feature a little bit of Floria and a little bit of the Marchioness. In any case, it's clear that the painting, to which both Sadu and Puccini refer, is an example of 19th century purismo, similar to the pre-Raphaelite movement, of which Sant'Andrea della Valle has some outstanding examples. The idea of blended harmony, which is based on contrasting beauty, but beauty nonetheless, is a reworking of an old artistic theory which dates back to Raphael. This theory, as documented by one of his dearest friends, Baldassare Castiglione, states that if a painter wishes to paint a beautiful woman, he must never choose a single beautiful model, then paint her as she is. He should, instead, see a number of women together, so he can take an element from each that is significant to him, crucial even, on which he would base his composition of an ideal figure. Now, this figure would originate more from the mind of the artist than from mere direct observation of the real. To paint a beautiful woman, as Raphael would have it, I would form an idea in my mind which would be the perfect definition of a woman, but only after having seen many other women, either together or individually. Raphael would have painted this way. Now, at the beginning of the 19th century, in Rome, one particular school of painters was gaining attention, known as the Nazarenes. These were mainly German painters, who were mostly Protestant, but had converted to Catholicism, and they had come to Rome to work, deeming it to be the home of the arts. They felt a great connection to the spirit of the Renaissance, particularly the early Renaissance, the art being practiced at the time of Raphael at the beginning of the 16th century and earlier. They explicitly referred to some of the giants of painting such as Perugino, Botticelli, Ghirlandaio and Signorelli. Now, these painters were invited to Rome at the end of the 15th century by Pope Sixtus IV to decorate the Great Chapel, subsequently known to everyone as the Sistine Chapel, which the Pope had built in the Vatican. This chapel was to be used for high religious functions, including the conclave of cardinals gathered to elect the new Pope. The Nazarenes left us with many famous works. Their leader was Friedrich Overbeck, of whom Cavaradossi is a type of clone, and his most famous works include a painting called Italia und Germania. It shows two women, one blonde and one brunette, holding hands fondly in front of a landscape that simultaneously depicts Italy and Germany. Cavaradossi is working using Overbeck's approach, that is, to reconcile a harmonious contrast of differing beauties, the blonde with the brunette. However, this is not intended to have any racial undertones. On the contrary, it's a well-meaning and knowing homage to those opposites which, once blended with wisdom and affection, creates the most beautiful and noble thing that can exist. However, the story of Tosca contradicts all this. Cavaradossi is a decent and unselfish revolutionary and is therefore exploited by the power that wants him dead, which is what eventually happens. The lesson is terrible and sublime at the same time. The two opposites are never really reconciled, despite the fact that both can be appreciated. Put into words, it becomes the foundation of the contrast: death, betrayal, horror, and desolation. Puccini's work on these themes is remarkable and adheres closely to the spirit of the places where the events take place. In fact, Sant'Andrea della Valle is a symbol of contrasts, struggles and marginalisation. It's the Church of the Theatine Fathers, a religious order formed in the 16th century to doggedly and determinedly combat the Protestant Reformation, which began in northern and central Europe. Its tools were rigid orthodoxy and uncompromising rigour. The budget for building the church of Sant'Andrea della Valle was enormous. Its dome is the largest and most beautiful in Rome after St. Peter's. The main body of the church is wondrous and majestic in its magnificence. Over time, from its foundation to today, eminent artists, painters and sculptors have been invited to decorate it using the reconciliation between contrasts and harmony as their themes. You couldn't imagine more effective themes then as now. In the apse, Domenichino, the distinguished, excellent Bolognese painter of the early 15th century, painted, among other things, one of the first female nudes, one that could be explicitly perceived as such in a church, representing the allegory of faith in God. And there were no objections. Moreover, most of the church was decorated in the 15th century by artistic giants, even if today they are not remembered as they deserve. Names like Giovanni De Vecchi from Borgo San Sepolcro, Domenico Cresti, known as Passignano, Cristofano Roncalli, known as Il Pomerancio, Giovanni Battista Crescenzi, Giovanni Lanfranco, the above-mentioned Domenichino, Mattia Preti, and innumerable others. All of them have left genuine artistic treasures which are by no means suffocating, formalistic or bureaucratic, but, on the contrary, are signs of the noble magnanimity of art, of a sublime figurative eloquence, of a warm welcome to visitors who are always amazed by the artist's generosity. In Puccini's world, the chapel in which Cavaradossi is working would be the first if you enter on the left-hand side. This is the Barbarini family chapel, which contains many splendid sculptures, including one of St. John the Baptist by Pietro Bernini, the father of the more well-known Gian Lorenzo. There's also a great deal of work by Passignano, an exceptional Florentine painter of the era, who painted a vast cycle with stories of the life of the Virgin Mary using fresco techniques, oil on canvas, and painting in oils directly on the wall surface. Now, his use of these techniques makes the works appear dazzling and powerful even centuries later. Of course, the beauty exemplified by his works has endured, so placing Cavaradossi in a similarly dazzling environment says a great deal about the knowledge that 19th century writers like Lirica and Giacosa had of that memorable period in the history of Italian painting. Sant'Andrea della Valle was decorated further in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and work by followers of the Nazarene school can still be seen in the main area of the church.
These words were written by Claudio Strinati. They were read by Douglas Dean. Music was by Giacomo Puccini, Simone Molinaro, Ottorino Respighi, and Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina.
If you want to learn more about the things we've talked about today, or find out more about our project, visit our website at lirica.tv or our social media profiles at Lirica Music Art. Thank you for listening. We'll be back with new episodes and lots more content on art, culture, and music. Lirica is a project promoted by Voxfarm and financed by LazioInnova as part of the FESER Lazio 2014-2020 Regional Operating Program.